All right, welcome to call the meeting to order of the September 6th, 2023 Planning Board meeting. It is call 6:01. My name is Stephanie Slish. I'm the chair of Planning Board. To my right, I have Jimmy Tarr. He's alternate chair. To my left, I have John Jeffress and Lee Bell, and we have our administrative assistant, Ashton Weigel. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes. First meeting on his own.
Mhm.
Congrats. Exciting. And then we have Janelle Franklin, our assistant town planner, joining us virtually. Janelle, can you just say hello for the record? Unmuted. I think there's like
Hello.
Thank you. I know if we had a virtual planning board member, you have to like acknowledge them virtually and have them verbally speak in. So I know you're not on the planning board, but I feel like we should do the same thing for you. All right. The first item on the agenda, as always, is public forum. This is opportunity for anyone to speak to anything that's not related to an item on the agenda. You can bring forth anything to us. Speak now or forever hold your peace until the next meeting. All right, public forum closed. And moving on to the formal discussion, which is a review of an A&R application on 12 to 18 Elm Street, which is the storage unit redevelopment project that we approved at the last meeting. They are coming forward to ask for an A&R to combine the two lots at 12 and 18, which is what it was combined up until around 2016 or 2017 when it was split, and should not have been split due to the inadequate frontage that it created. I am explaining this because and taking the time to talk about this as we wait for the applicant to join the meeting virtually, as there was a little bit of a fall through. The person who was supposed to be here in person to present this fell through. So now we are waiting for the applicant, Alejandro, to join the meeting to present this.
So Alejandro just said that the access code for the phone number is not working, which I am double checking now, and what we have on the agenda is what I sent him. So I'll ask him if he minds trying one more time. Otherwise, if it is invalid, I don't know if that's
He can
a
just
violation of open meeting law. I mean, I can access this via the computer, and it's being held in person.
Janelle, the other thing that we can have him do is call Ashton, and we can do it that way, and just have him as audio on, as we've done with previous
Okay,
people in the past.
I'll have him do that. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, he says still invalid.
Well, troubleshoot that, Ashton, for next time.
For next time. I don't think it's a problem because we're hosting it in person too, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Yep. If everyone wants to take a moment to review the minutes, if they haven't already, from what August 2nd.
Good.
In the meantime,
Hi, we have you here. We've started the meeting.
Speaker on your phone?
yeah, can turn it up.
That's all the way.
Okay.
All right, hello, Alejandro. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Hello.
Great. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're glad to have you here. We're staring at the picture of the map and of your application for the A&R application from the town. And if you would like to explain what you are presenting to us, and then we can discuss and vote.
Sure. So pursuant to the conversation we had at the last planning board meeting, we filed this A&R, which combines the two parcels of 12 and 18 into a single parcel. And it's our understanding from our conversations and from that last meeting that this would address the frontage nonconformity and allow us to move forward.
All right, and just again for the record, this is Alejandro Levins, applicant.
Yes.
All right, any questions or comments from board members on this? This is, an A&R is something that procedurally has to go through us, but as long as it fits the frontage criteria and the area square footage, then it's something that we approve. So, without any further discussion,
I make a motion, we approve the A&R for 12 to 18 Elm Street.
I'll second.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, all right. The A&R is approved, and if there's anything we need to sign, we will do that tonight, Alejandro, for you to send over to the Registry of Deeds. Should be ready for tomorrow then, right, Ashton?
It should be.
Cool.
Yeah, and it can be picked up either, I would say at your office, Ashton, because I know Alejandro, you had some concerns about picking it up. Can I think of the name of the office? Oh my
Wait,
gosh.
call failed.
I'm on my second day of school here. My brain is
Are you
fried.
talking about
The clerk's office.
the clerk's office?
The clerk's office is closed on Fridays. So if someone stops by to pick it up during the week, I would just say to come to Ashton and I's office
Okay,
and pick it up there.
we'll relay that. Is he on the call now?
He's here.
Okay, yeah, Alejandro, Janelle was
I heard
just,
that last part,
that's all right.
That we could pick it up from Ashton's office.
yes, that was what we were saying.
Perfect. I can do that next week.
Okay, great.
Excellent.
And
Thank you very much.
thank you. All right, now we can move on to our next agenda item, which is board discussions and updates. The first one is the Hatfield Design Guidelines, which, just to give a little history, these Hatfield Design Guidelines were drafted, as you can see, in 2014. That's like a 16-ish, 20-ish page document. Design guidelines are generally passed by communities to have some guidelines around mostly commercial development or large-scale development that happens in their town. These guidelines are referenced all over our zoning bylaws, but allegedly were never passed at town meeting. And so we have reference in our zoning bylaws to Hatfield design guidelines that do not exist. So one of the first items that was kind of a fairly low lift item that Janelle is working on here is having us work to get these before town meeting next year. So what we've unearthed is the draft that was in 2014, and hopefully, if you have not had time to read it, hopefully you will have time to read it before the next meeting, where hopefully we can approve them and get them moving to go to the town meeting warrant.
So what would the procedure be, just so we can?
That was
Kind of
something
put
I
it out.
needed to work with Janelle on. Do you need to have a public hearing on these, or is the fact that these are public meetings enough of a public, I need to know the procedure, what are the steps for us to get it on the town warrant, which Ashton might be a good learning opportunity for you.
For sure.
Yeah. So it's us approving them, but I don't know if there needs to be any sort of public hearing on getting community input on something like this, especially if it's going to go on a warrant and it's a change to our zoning bylaws.
And do we expect any controversy because these were from 9 years ago?
Yeah.
Right. So
Valid point.
allegedly, I don't know how accurate or not it is, but apparently the reason why they didn't pass is I don't know why they had to go before the select board, but apparently what I was told, which I don't know if it's 100% true, that they didn't get passed because maybe the select board thought that these guidelines were too prescriptive and not business friendly. However, if Janelle, being a planning student, would want to speak on, these are pretty standard in maybe not super small communities like ours, but are probably going to be the standard. Sorry about that. Are definitely like the best practice, I would say.
Mhm.
I don't know, Janelle, would you like to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I mean, going through it, it was, I thought pretty standard compared to other communities in this area of what is allowed and is not allowed. And like with that feedback that it is not too business friendly, I guess I'd be interested in putting it on an agenda just to see if people would show up or try advertising it in some way that's like to get community input and how people feel, because I have the feeling that people in Hatfield in general are very caring about the style of buildings and like the amount of open space that we have now. So I mean, like the design guidelines could be changed to allow like denser business, like a denser business corridor, but I don't know if that would be what people would want to do. So with that in mind, I feel like they're pretty standard. I think the bulk of the work that I had anticipated on doing for that was formatting, and that has been fixed. So
Yeah, as I haven't like read it over with a fine tooth comb, but my reviewing it, like my thoughts on it is that it's very long. And it's been feedback in general. And I think like we should try to streamline as much as possible so people actually want to use this document. And so I looked actually today at Belchertown's design guidelines, which is very much more like presentation style instead of a lot of text. And there's like a slide that says things we do encourage, things we are discouraging. So it's very clear like what we want, what we don't want, as opposed to just like all of that's kind of mashed in all of this. I can share that with you, Janelle.
is that in addition to textual guidelines that they have?
It might be, but I mean, like it's very like this is what we want, a picture of it, and it explains what like the 3 or 4 things that they would want, things that we don't want. It's just like more reader friendly than this.
Digestible, yeah.
Well, this is like
Okay.
20 pages.
Right. And I agree that we should, I mean, this is a decade ago. I feel like things.
It's a little vague in its language too. It's kind of like this is a suggestion. These are recommendations.
Oh,
It
should.
never
Should.
Yeah.
Should.
Right. So I guess like it would be like when for an applicant came to us, we would be like, please use the design guidelines as a reference, as opposed to, I mean, that's what these guidelines say, but in the planning board bylaws, does it say they should, or does it say that they have to follow them? That's a question.
Well, that would be a question for sure.
I'm also wondering, ex post facto, how these guidelines affected the hotel.
Right. Like I feel like we could have been stronger maybe on some of the design for the hotel.
Or I might have had this information beforehand to, just as a counterpoint to what he's trying to do, so give us a little more say in how it's going to look.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it'll look fine.
Might be interesting to get the mindset of the select board that had the gripes with it too. Just get to the heart of what might be the sticking issues with it right from the.
Yeah, if that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I don't know.
Just too busy, fell through the cracks. Like, what was the
Yeah.
Right. Because yes, I agree that we should have something. I just don't know. Like, this just feels like a lot. is that standard to have it be this much? I know I've looked at City of Northampton's and it's like crazy. Like this is nothing compared to Northampton's, but we're not Northampton.
Right.
So
Well, they ran into a bunch of problems on King Street with limitations to their development because of where things ended up. As I recall, there were a bunch of issues with the parking. They had to put it in the back, and they had to jump through hoops to get the amount of parking they needed for some of those establishments. Is how I recall. But
yeah, and that like seems like that would be more in the bylaws and less in the design
Yeah.
guidelines.
Yeah. But I mean, there are these suggestions here as well. So I guess is my point.
Yeah, it's more of like these are definitely more of like the spirit of the type of thing that we would like to see is like this. And we do request some stuff, but this I think would give us a little more not teeth because it's not like we have teeth in it, but things that we can point to, and hopefully given any sort of relationship that with anyone that comes before us, it would be, trying to work together and could use these as like the spirit of
So this is
a project.
mostly for commercial development,
This is
although I
yeah.
did notice there was some houses in there,
Mm.
talking about linear this and linear that.
Yeah, it says the goal of the design guidelines for commercial and mixed use development
Okay.
in Hatfield
Mhm.
is, and so yeah, so I guess the question is for next steps here. If
So it looks like, or I was going to say, it looks like thinking about ways that it can be presented in a more digestible manner for people could be something that could be worked on.
yeah, so I think there's homework for all of us on the board
That's what
to
I was-
go through and say like, what is an absolute like, this is crazy, we shouldn't have this, or like things that we personally feel like is a little much. Not necessarily wordsmithing word for word, but like going through the spirit of this and seeing like what seems a little bit much and sending those thoughts to Janelle ahead of time of the next meeting, if that makes sense. And then maybe Ashton's to do is to figure out what we need to do like procedurally to get this on the town meeting warrant for May. Like, do we need to have a public hearing is basically my question.
Okay, that'd
around
be easy.
that. Yep. And then Janelle, if you want to like take some of whatever we like, try to condense it and or I don't know what would be better if you want to get our feedback first before you try to condense it a little bit, or
I think it would be nice
Yeah,
if
I'll
this,
wait.
excuse me for a sec, Janelle, I
I'll
think
wait.
this would be a nice agenda item for us at the next meeting with Janelle and, as a agenda item so that everybody knows we're going to be talking about this, because we start talking about things that aren't on the agenda, we get in trouble.
this is the agenda item.
Right, but I mean, so if we have this on the agenda for the next time as a discussion,
Mhm.
then maybe people will show up and not complain that they weren't involved.
Maybe more on the formal discussion instead of the board discussion
Right.
piece. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, to give us some time to chew on it too.
Yeah, and so if we can not, review this not like the day before the meeting,
Right.
please. Like go home and like review it over the next week or so and give feedback just like, and you could be fine with all of it and be like, whatever. And knowing that Janelle's going to take the spirit of it and try to condense some of it and or just make it a nicer format. I don't know. No, the format's fine, but
I think just the length of it makes it unpalatable to people that aren't on the board like us. People are look 20 pages. What do I need 20 pages for to design the front of my store? I just think that's going to be a mindset of some people. So if we can have this much more condensed and not necessarily 1,000 pictures of all the different stores and businesses that do things different ways, sort of like, let's get it to what we want in town and what we absolutely do not want in town and limit that to, a few things as opposed to 20 pages of them that might be easier for people to understand in the future.
yep. Yeah, and also to your point, Jimmy, yes, some people might be like, oh, this is so cumbersome. However, if you're developing a commercial property
Yep.
and you have a designer or architect on board, they've likely run
Yep.
into these before.
Of course.
Yeah.
Simplification is complicated.
It is, yes. Yeah, because that's something, just simplifying and streamlining in general is something that like I'd like to see with an updated version of our bylaws and stuff too. In all the ways to incentivize people to want to use them. You know.
Right. Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out is, if we make this too hard for people to understand, they're not going to want to abide by it, or they're going to have a problem with it. If we make it real easy and understandable, then I think we get a lot more chance of not having controversies come up in the future.
Yeah, and it's fair, this was developed with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission staff person. Like this wasn't designed in a vacuum or
Right.
by people who didn't know what they were talking about. So like I think we're like 80% there. It's just
How it applies to us.
Yeah. I mean, and it was how it applies to us in 2014.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? Janelle, does this seem feasible given your other things that you might be working on?
Yes.
Cool.
I think this should be fine.
Thank you. With that, since you have the mic, the next agenda item, are we good to move on to the next agenda item, folks?
Sure.
Cool. Any updates from our assistant planner, Janelle Franklin?
Yes. So, well, I guess the work in progress is that having a discussion with Bob about open space.
Bob Wagner, former board chair.
So that will be next Thursday. And so that is in the works. And then otherwise.
And could you give a little more context as to why you're connecting with him and just the project that relates to?
Yeah, so it seems like there were some issues with the last proposed updates that we had for the open space bylaw. And so we are trying to synthesize it more and make it more palatable to people who will be or could possibly be building in town. Because right now, if you're a builder and you want to build a subdivision in Hatfield, it might just seem easier to you to do a regular subdivision rather than go through the open space subdivision bylaws and try and piece together how you could benefit from building something in that way. So just making it more user-friendly, making some updates to it to make it stronger legally. And Bob obviously worked on it quite a bit beforehand and has a lot of knowledge about it that he's going to share with me, and then we'll make some updates and hopefully get that on the warrant for this year for town meeting.
Great. Yeah, because that was something that was on the town warrant in 2019 and was pulled at the last minute from our town council just on like the wording of a couple of things. And so she's going to meet with Bob to figure out what those things are instead of trying to ask town council and bill up some hours. Yeah, and so anticipate that coming before us in the next couple of months too, because Janelle and I met and like talked about timeline. So in order to get something on the town meeting warrant in May, you have to like know that it's going to be on the warrant by like January-ish to have January or February to have space on the town meeting warrant, which means we need to like approve something like by the end of the year-ish. So be on the lookout for some of that. And the reason why Ashton, we would also have that on the town meeting warrant. So if that would apply to the design guidelines, it would apply to updating our open space development bylaw. So any questions or thoughts on that for Janelle? I just know that on the comprehensive plan committee, that type of development seems like it would be encouraged as any outcome from any update to the comprehensive plan. So I feel like it's good that we're going to be on top of it and ahead of the game by updating it before the comprehensive plan kind of comes out, and we'll probably recommend something like that because we're very close to doing that in 2019. And hopefully, like, it would be, you know, it would also be nice to do like a education campaign on it or something like that, as to why.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like a flyer that we could have whenever someone comes in and asks Ashton about subdivision stuff. He could be like, and here's this flyer on open space development bylaw and why it might be a better option for you or something like that. That's just like education is
Yeah,
a big
but-
thing.
It's interesting
Um,
how the 3 houses on North Hatfield Road with the frontage on Straits Road worked out. Those 3 brand new houses,
Yes.
and they used all their frontage from the other side.
Yes.
And that's, and there's a lot of open space left there.
Right. That's a interesting.
I mean, I don't
Right.
think they left the open space for that reason. I think they left the open space because they only wanted to build 3 houses on the North Hatfield Road side.
No, that was the town protecting. In order for us to protect most of that parcel,
Uh-huh.
we had to allow development of some of that.
On
And
this
so that's
side,
what we
gotcha.
did. Yeah. Any other comments related to town education too? At the comprehensive plan committee meeting, people are always like, we need an accessory bylaw or accessory dwelling unit bylaw. And I'm like, we do have an accessory dwelling unit bylaw. We voted on that in the 2019 town meeting. And according to our building inspector, he said maybe one person has inquired about it and there has not been it hasn't been an accessory dwelling unit put in since we passed that, which I find interesting. And again, goes back to education in the community. Our accessory dwelling unit bylaw currently says it has to be attached. We don't allow detached accessory dwelling units because that what was determined as palatable to pass at town meeting in 2019.
Percentage space, percentage of the existing structure. We're limited to a percentage of the existing structure.
Yeah, it's a certain number of square
40,
footage and
40%
stuff.
maybe, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's all in our zoning
Yep,
bylaws,
yep,
and it
so-
goes back to education and letting people know that we have that. Were you going to make a comment, John?
I was just, tactical about access to this document. Like, can we red pen it up and track changes? Are we going to get access to an editable version of this document? Or you
That
just
would be
wanna,
the easiest, probably,
You want to just
Mhm.
pen it up on paper, which slows it down.
for sure. For those that are comfortable using the digital, commenting on digital copy, I think we have a version of it, and we can just send back.
That would be definitely the easiest.
Is there one that we can share that we all can get in
Is
at
it
the
like a
same
Word
time?
doc or
that
a
would
Google
be, that
doc?
would be easy enough to do. Yeah.
Okay,
Whatever works best. It could be
I think
Google, it could be
Yeah.
Word.
Either way, track changes, and so
Yeah.
you don't have to have a million versions of it out there, right?
Yeah.
This is the one with Lee's changes. This is the one with John's.
the only thing I would want to keep, I'd wonder from a open meeting perspective how that would be if we're
That's
all
actually,
working
yeah, that's-
on the same document.
That's technically, it would all have to be public. Everything you do and say to each other would have to be recorded.
Right, so 4 of us couldn't necessarily be on one common line.
So
without-
my homework is to go home and make some edits to this.
Yep.
I'm just going to go and edit the document, not
Yeah.
in cahoots with you guys,
Yes.
just doing some editing.
Mhm.
Yes.
At the same time, you could be editing the same document because we're just working as separate.
Right. You can't just be
workers.
hashing out, you're having
Can't
conversations in the
communicate
document,
about
Right.
it, Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
deliberating on it.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So all the arguments about changes have to be
Done at the
published.
meeting or published, yeah. So if there are any sticking points, we will discuss them at the next meeting. All right. Any other updates, Janelle, on your end? Congrats back to school season. I'm avoiding Hadley at all costs for the next week. or so.
Yeah, it is grocery shopping. It's not nearly, I mean, it already wasn't fun, and now it's really not fun.
All right.
But
yeah.
I don't have any more updates for right now.
Cool. Thank you. Now for minutes approval. Has everyone had a chance to look at our August 2nd meeting minutes?
They look good. Yes, ma'am.
Any comments or additions or edits needed? They look good to me.
Looks
Yep.
good to
If
me.
anyone would like,
I move to
Make a
approve these minutes as presented.
all right,
And that.
we got a second.
Second.
Oh, we already got one down there.
Double
Okay.
second.
Any further
Sure.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Minutes from August 2nd, 2023 meeting are approved. Our next scheduled meeting is for October 4th. Yes.
10-4.
Where we'll see what comes down the pike, but we'll definitely be talking about Hatfield design guidelines.
I
So,
may not be here on the 4th. I have to go to a wedding in Nashville.
fun. You're going to party it up?
Yeah, I guess.
So if, we'll have to keep an eye on if there's no public hearings.
Pretty sure
'cause
we're leaving that day.
It should be okay if we don't have any public hearings on the 4th because Mike's been pretty unresponsive, which we need
But
to address
I could probably be here
virtually
virtually. Yeah.
if you need to. Okay.
Yep,
We'll be in touch as we get closer to see
Okay.
if there's any public, because
Yeah,
if there's any sort of public hearing thing or a special permit or anything we need to vote on, it needs 2/3 majority, which means we need 4 out of the
Right.
5.
All right,
But if not, we just need a quorum of 3 of the 5 of us. So
Okay. Right, and I'll stay up with Ashton about what's going on.
cool. All right. Anything else?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
All right. All in favor? All right.
Aye.
Yes. Okay. Meeting adjourned at 6:32. Thank you, everyone.